Back from the summer recess, and the first day of school coincides with the first day of council, so everybody dressed up in their at the school best by announcement, so that's good. So it's just a reminder about your microphone buttons and whatnot, so we'll try and be vigilant about reminding one another about the microphone buttons and that. And so the first item of business is to call the meeting to order, which I will do now. And then the second item is to ask if there's any items appearing on today's agenda that any members of council have a pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest on. And I don't see any. And it's noted that Councillor Chapman is already said that he'd be late for today's meeting because he has a prior engagement with the city of Lethbridge to present on Highway 3, so he'll join us during the meeting sometime. All right, and there's the one, on my copy, there's one addition to the agenda, item 11.8, it's the Roger Brooks event. Otherwise, the agenda hasn't changed substantively, but so I'll call for adoption of the amended agenda. If somebody, Councillor Simpson, all in favor? Okay. All right. And we have a 3.1 regular council meeting minutes of July 9th, 2018. Does anybody have any observations, errors, or omissions to note? What you were in order as far as I could see. Councillor Holm? Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And then we have item 3.2, the special council meeting minutes of July 24th, 2018. They appeared to reflect everything as far as I could recall. Councillor Simpson will move the minutes as presented. Any questions? Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. And then we have item 4.1, solid waste inquiry, follow-up from July 9th, 2018. Cindy.
So this item has been brought back from the July 9th meeting. As council had directed administration to report back regarding the cost, manpower, and long-term infrastructure and safety matters related to the solid waste pickup. So as outlined in the staff report, in order to give an accurate indication on what the streets, what shape the streets are in, we would need to contract out a company to do core samples of each street to see what the base structure is like. I did get a quote from one, and for 16 holes, it was $32,000 plus. So that's if they didn't find anything or didn't have to do additional testing. So in order to give you an accurate report back on what the streets were like and what the substructure was like, we would need to, that is recommendation 1. Then recommendation 2 is changing to the front pickup, and 3 is to keep it as is with enforcement efforts by our bylaw officers.
Thank you, Cindy. Any questions through to Cindy? Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. Not really a question, more of a comment. Speaking in favor of number 2, I don't think there's any need in spending any more money on making our decision on garbage pickup. We can see already the damage that's being done to our infrastructure in the back alleys. So I'd make a motion that we change all residential solid waste pickup locations to the front, except for those properties in Parkside Close and Parkside Drive, effective October 1st, 2018.
From Councillor Avery, any discussion? Councillor Lloyd?
Will there be anything in place to make sure that the residents put their garbage on the side or on the back? I don't like them, everybody having theirs in the front. It looks messy. Do we have anything in place like that, bylaws or anything that they have to put it on the side?
No, currently front pickup is either on in the front of the home or in the rear in the alley.
So, and then to clarify, there's nothing within the bylaw that stipulates that in the meantime, a person has to kind of store the containers out of sight type thing.
You just need to store it on your property.
Right. Okay, and I'll be voting against the motion as proposed because I don't, in response to the survey and the feedback that I seem to have gotten from the community, and I feel that probably number 2 is a little bit too simplistic in its approach type thing. Like I believe in the last meeting, Councillor Avery suggested even looking at going just to one side for pickup and whatnot, and there's other different options that could be explored a little bit more. So just because number 2, the way it's read, I'm not quite comfortable with that kind of myself. So Councillor Lloyd?
Yes, Your Worship, I totally agree with you. I've had lots of feedback from residents that really still want it to remain the way it is.
And Councillor Simpson?
I think some of our questions too were kind of how does the staff and how did the garbage truck company feel about moving it that way too? It wasn't 100% just about if the streets could handle it. So I would just like a little bit of feedback on that.
I've spoke with them. They will do what we ask them to do. Front pickup is easier for them as they're not trying to navigate the narrow alleys or the rutted up alleys in the winter, the drifted in alleys, those types of things. But they will do what we decide either way.
I'll call one time for any further discussion or questions. Councillor Pauls?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering if we could do a trial run, like go for a couple of months with everything to the front, and then decide. Would that be possible?
Anything's possible, I guess. It's yeah, you could. Since we've gone out and tagged the bins, there has been people, I've had a couple of calls of people that have wanted to see if they could change to front pickup just because they have a hard time pulling their bins in from the alley. So, yeah, if you wanted a trial, I guess that's...
Well, that was part of my idea of how come maybe doing a test run. It's because a lot of people that leave their stuff in the back, they leave it there because they can't get it in and out. So if they go to the front, then like they'd be more than there are those that would rather go to the front. So I don't know. A couple of months wouldn't hurt. Isn't going to wreck the infrastructure in 2 months.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would speak against a trial. I think we make a decision and we go with it. My only question to Cindy then is, if we do make the change to go to front only, what kind of blitz will we have with the citizens to ensure that everybody is aware of this and has some time to react to it?
I guess, we can advertise in the newspaper, put it out in newsletters, social media, get it out to them. We could I just sent out the new solid waste schedules. I could send out a separate item, so it's just that it's happening. I guess kind of use every media source possible to get it out to them that it is changing.
Just follow up then, is it possible for everybody who has alley pickup right now to get an individual letter handed to them, or at least put into their mailbox or into their house to make sure that nothing is missed on this one?
I guess I probably could. It would take some time, as not anybody who has an alleyway is not necessarily rear pickup. We could send out personal letters to every single place, so we don't miss anybody who has alley pickup. But right now there is like some down in the older part of Coaldale that they have laneways, but they don't have. So it would take some work, but we could do it.
Kaylin, go ahead.
With regard to the letter, the simplest way might just be send a blanket letter to every single property in Coaldale, whether some are already having the front pickup schedule, but that way at least every property in town who utilizes the service, be that residential or commercial, will be notified that on this date it's at this location. And it may apply to some and may not to others, but at least that way nothing falls through the cracks.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Oh, Councillor Lloyd?
If we're going to go that way, I would agree with Butch and do it on a 3-month trial before we go into it completely. If that's the way it's going to go, I would prefer not to, but that's the way it goes.
No, but the way the motion reads, it's the way it is right now, so that wouldn't include a trial, so. Would you entertain a friendly amendment, Councillor Avery, or?
No, I did not. I believe if we're going to do it, let's do it. We could readdress it again in the spring, but I wouldn't accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, so we have the motion, option number 2, that council change all residential solid waste pickup locations to the front of their properties except for Parkside Close and Parkside Drive to be effective October 1st, 2018. Unless there's any further questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, so that's carried. All right. And then we'll amend the agenda just slightly because we have a business item, item number 7.1, that it makes more sense to have that come before us prior to the actual bylaw. So we'll go down to 6.2, everybody's favorite topic. So it's Cam.
Thank you. Okay, so item 6.2 is the proposed cannabis consumption bylaw. Obviously, this is an issue we've had a number of opportunities to discuss over the past few months. What we've prepared is a bylaw that's in line with a legal opinion that was provided in July and reviewed at the special meeting on July 24th. Fundamentally, the legal opinion stated that from a consumption standpoint, the town was within its rights to restrict cannabis consumption in all its forms exclusively to private property, though not to specify where on private property this might be located. So the attached bylaw that's been provided is in line with that request.
Thank you, Cam. Yeah, I agree that it's basically reflective of the council direction thus far, for the majority direction anyway, so. Councillor Pauls?
Just a question here. Page 5 of 7, 4.0 or 4.1. Does that mean that anybody that's got a medical thing can smoke wherever he feels like?
Yeah, so that's again in line with the statement from the legal opinion. The regulations with respect to consumption of medical marijuana simply are in line with the federal regulations covering the consumption, which exist today. So they can
go anywhere they want and smoke where, that might be a nice thing to have.
Yeah, so those
Okay, just wondering.
those are the rules, and
Okay.
they're not our rules to
All right,
meddle with, as it were.
thank you.
Okay, does anybody care to sponsor first reading if there's no other comments or questions? Councillor Lloyd sponsors first reading of the bylaw with the public hearing date set therein. Or?
To clarify, so the public hearing, there is no requirement for a public hearing on this particular bylaw. There is a requirement for the public hearing on the land use bylaw side of the cannabis requirements. So there is a public open house that's being next week, which can be used to address this issue as well as the land use bylaw issue. It is within council's right, if they so choose, to have 3 readings in today's meeting if they feel they have unanimous consent on the issue.
Okay, so there we have it. Thank you for the clarification. So all those in favor of first reading and opposed? Okay. Councillor Avery is opposed. Okay, and does anybody care to move second reading, or do you prefer the?
Opportunity here to have this discussed at the open houses as well as the land use bylaw for where we're going to build buildings and where we're going to sell cannabis. So I believe that we should hold off second and third reading until we have that opportunity to hear that at the same time.
So will your motion be table second hearing until that date then? Correct. Okay. We have a tabling motion by Councillor Holm. All in favor? And opposed? Okay. Councillor Lloyd was opposed. And then we have item 6.3. And this for...
Thank you. So item 6.3 is an amendment to the Town of Coaldale Land Use Bylaw 677 P0413. This amendment, there are a number of points that need to be amended within the bylaw stemming from the revised MGA that took place effective in January. So there are a number of administrative details that are handled in this particular amendment, specifically A through E, as well as H within this proposal. Items F and G relate to the issues of cannabis regulation within town. Again, these proposed amendments are in line with the legal opinion and the previous discussions we've had with council on this particular topic. This issue will require a public hearing, and so we're scheduling that currently for the October 9th council meeting, and we're asking for first reading at this time. I will also outline, so with respect to F, what we're proposing at this point is the restriction of the cannibal retail sales use and the cannabis lounge uses to be explicitly prohibited within the land use bylaw. Note that as defined definitions within the bylaw, it is in fact prohibited where it is not expressly permitted. So this is just sort of an extra measure to ensure there's clarity with respect to that. With respect to item G, this is a bit of an amendment, but it's also a new issue. The cannabis production facility component. Previously, there'd been discussion of production facilities for medical marijuana uses. With the changes in the regulations also at the federal level, there requires within the bylaw some clarification on the town's stance with respect to production facilities. So these would be facilities which grow and cultivate and ultimately destroy plants on site. Basically a wholesale type of operation. This is not a direct-to-consumer sales operation. It would have no direct impact on the sale of the product within the town. So the proposal here, basically there are two reasonable options. One was something that could be allowed as a potential discretionary use within our industrial districts. These are larger scale operations. There are federal requirements for security, which are very extensive with these types of facilities. There are a number of regulations at the other levels of government that govern that type of thing. Industrial parks is typically where they would be located in other municipalities. So council has the opportunity to consider whether or not these types of facilities would operate within town. Again, it would be perfectly within council's line to ban retail sales, but still potentially allow for production to be sold, to produce something for ultimately for sale and consumption in other municipalities. Two completely separate uses. They don't by any means go hand in hand. So what we'll need direction on there is whether or not to include that as a potential discretionary use in the land use bylaw within our industrial districts, or if council would prefer, we can make it a prohibited use and have that explicitly listed as well.
Questions from the CAM? So on this item G, what kind of assessment would that, or is that treated as a farm assessment, or is that?
I'm not an expert in an assessment, but my understanding is that it's not. I'd have to do a little more research on that, but it's functionally a manufacturing facility, so there might be some mixed assessment and industrial assessment, but these would be higher. The assessment generated and ultimately the tax revenue generated from this type of facility would be fairly substantial. You know, compared to something like a retail operation, it would be an order of magnitude larger for sure. Yeah. These are multi-million-dollar facilities just in order to comply with the regulations with respect to the HVAC systems and the security and the fencing, and it's not a low cost type of proposal. So.
Councilor Home?
I would move option 1.
Okay, and any questions then? You have a motion as sponsored by Councilor Home that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the land bylaw, further that council establishes a public hearing date in accordance with its obligations on October 9th. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. And then we have 6.4. You don't get to speak to this one.
No,
Yeah.
it's me. This is
Is it
still
you?
me.
Oh, wow.
So we have before you, we have a parcel of land. In fact, it is the parcel that contains the lagoon sites that requires redesignation. All of the parcels that were annexed, that were brought into town this spring, will require rezoning. This is a parcel that's owned by the town. It's a simpler process for us to engage in this rezoning. We're proposing that the industrial zoning be applied to this parcel. The industrial zoning is appropriate for the lagoon itself, would allow us to engage in the potential expansion of that use. There are also a number of other uses that might be applied. There is some vacant land contained within that parcel that the town may wish to explore. For certain uses, we feel the industrial use is the most appropriate in that section. So we'd propose that council consider rezoning to that use at this time.
Thank you, Clayton. Any questions through the CAM? Everybody's sluggish from their summer vacation. You can't move.
I'll throw a good one.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. The proposed recommendation here is proposed rezoning to industrial. Is there any reason that direct control wasn't thrown out as an alternative, or is that a viable option instead of industrial, just given that it's right close to one of our major utilities?
Yeah, direct control is certainly an option for council as well for control of this particular parcel. From a planning perspective, typically as planners, we're reluctant to recommend direct control. for anything other than very specific or unique uses, but certainly well within council's rights to pursue that designation if they'd prefer to have direct, well, if they'd prefer to have direct control of the management of that particular site. For those councillors that aren't familiar with the direct control district, direct control allows for council to act functionally as the municipal planning commission on that site. Basically, you'll be approving development permits within that site, so it provides for council to play a direct hand in that position. One important detail with respect to those sites is that decision of council on the issuance of a permit within a direct control district is not subject to the Subdivision Development Appeal Board.
Councillor Holm.
Council move first reading.
As the industrial or direct control? Or?
As industrial.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion by Councillor Holm on option number 1. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. All right, we're getting on to 2:30, so. But I think we lost Glenn here, so. All right. Oh, there we go. Okay. We're ready for you.
Fabulous.
You wanted to make a grand entrance, that's all. Like,
That's why I came here.
very effective.
Thank you. As promised, I'd like to introduce our new sergeant. My apologies, our new sergeant is responding to a suicide call right now in town, so he has to deal with that first. So if he comes along after the fact, we'll maybe do some introductions there and go from there. So my apologies. I think there's a couple things that you're looking for. First up, I think you are looking at some discussion on this public-facing crime mapping, and I think my partner Clayton here did some research on this as well. I'd sent this information out previously, and I'm not sure if you folks have had a chance to review that, and if you're just interested in some questions, or do you want me to kind of give you a quick overview again as to what it's all about?
Or, okay.
Sure. Yeah. It's actually, without making this very complicated, the RCMP is kind of catching up to some of the other municipal police services that have been doing this for a while. What the role of this program, it's provincial-wide, so within K Division. It's optional for communities, for both municipalities and counties. And what it is if a county or municipality has their own website, the RCMP will partner. In other words, go onto your website, and what we'll do is we'll add crime mapping statistics. Those statistics are items such as, or crime types such as theft of motor vehicle, theft from motor vehicle, break and enter, mischiefs, missing persons, and if we have a special police event where maybe heaven forbid, a bomb situation or a barricaded person situation, that type of stuff, on this crime mapping, we can put a notation on there to alert people so that they're not going to go to that particular area. The crime stats that are put on there, they're put on for a 2-week period. The RCMP controls the mapping type idea. We add it, delete it, do all that stuff to it, and we can also keep that data for 2 years. So I think what the real benefit of this type of crime mapping is it's open to the public, and if there's the public has concerns about how much crime is in our area, they can go to the crime map and see what crimes in the past 2 weeks are in that area. That's kind of the idea behind it. It's not an overview of what happens all year, but it's still a snapshot of a 2-week period. the data that gets put on the map is not specific data, so it's not going to go right to the mayor's house. If it was a theft of vehicle from the mayor's residence, the crime map will show it down the street a little bit, you know, intersections, that type of stuff. So we're not necessarily identifying specific people, but we're still identifying particular areas. So I think that's kind of that, sort of in a nutshell. The one nice thing we can do with stolen vehicles is they can add some extra information on it. And I think it says here we can add a picture of the vehicle, license plate and stuff. So it may add a little more information for the public to assist us in locating stolen vehicles. How am I doing so far?
Good.
Somebody want to add to that?
I basically got the feedback portion from St. Albert where they ran the trial. The public loves the program. They had it implemented prior to the RCMP implementing it, just as a local program in the paper. But this program's a little bit, with being a live map on the computers, a little bit more up to date and feeds that information out a little bit quicker. But from the public's perspective up there, and the feedback from the municipality was they love the program.
Just one thing I'll add, this is optional, so it doesn't have to, you don't have to jump on board, but what it will do provincial wide is it'll show all the municipalities. So if a municipality or a county decides not to opt in, on the Alberta map you'll be grayed out, that's all. So there may be some questions asked why we grayed out type thing, and I guess that'll be up to you guys to say that.
I think this is a great idea, and I think I've heard from the public, some people in the public, that this is something they would really like to have. So I would like to make a motion to go with number 1.
So thank you very much. We have a motion by Councillor Simpson for option number 1. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. And then you want to add a little bit more, Staff Sergeant?
No, I'm just kind of stalling because the sergeant's not here, but I also had submitted to the CAO the annual performance plan for 2018, 2019, or 2018. April 1st to June 30th. I'm not sure if there's any comments or any issues on that. I haven't formally introduced the annual performance plan at all either, so I'll leave it up to you guys for this time period or another time period.
Yeah.
Is this the one that you sent me a week ago?
Yep. August 24th.
CAO was on vacation and didn't forward that to council yet. My apologies.
That would be great. We can do it.
Oh, here we go. All right.
So that's a good segue into
yeah.
An introduction to Sergeant.
Oh, you can join Staff Sergeant. Yeah.
I say this tongue-in-cheek, but also with a sense of seriousness. I'd like to introduce to you the future of the Coaldale RCMP, Sergeant Dave Marentet. Dave will give his own little bio and stuff, but he's been here for a couple of weeks now, and it's been fantastic value added to our policing. And like I say, I'd like just to take this opportunity to thank council again for their support, and I think you will see the value added in time through the community.
So then, Staff Sergeant, this is as a result of council's commitment for policing Coaldale, and this we made a special request for a 9th member,
yes.
And so this is reflective of our concern for good policing in Coaldale, and so the sergeant is now on duty in Coaldale, and
yeah. So again, we're still, as a reminder, we're running a post system, which means we take the rural resources and municipal resources and combine them together for coverage. Sergeant Marentet is going to take over the operational day-to-day stuff. So all the investigations, he's doing reviews. So he'll do reviews on both the rural and the municipal side, but you'll see the value added, I think, with his presence here as more of a management team. I talked about it before about director, assistant director. Sergeant Marentet will seamlessly take over policing when I'm not here. And in time, when I get fired or retire, he'll be able to take over as well.
Well, you can give us a brief bio in that. And welcome to the community on behalf of council.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for obviously helping create this position. My family and I are certainly happy to be here. A little bit about me. I started my service in Surrey, British Columbia, right out of Depot, Regina. I went to Surrey, did some time in Surrey, then I took a posting up in northern British Columbia to an isolated reserve called Seke. It was a fly-in only in the middle of nowhere. It was a 2-year limited duration post. I did my 2 years there. Then I went to Dawson City in the Yukon. Did some time in Dawson. Then I took a transfer to the eastern coast in Newfoundland. Was in a place called Bay Roberts, which is about an hour away from St. John's. From there, I went to High Level, Alberta, way up north. For those who don't know, it goes right to the border of the Northwest Territories. I was a corporal there, so a road supervisor. I promoted to Manning as the detachment commander, so I was a sergeant detachment commander in Manning, which is just south of High Level. For High Level, it's moving south. For folks down here, it's way north. But so I've slowly made my way down. So now here I am in Coaldale as the operations NCO. I have a wife, Chelsea, and one son who's 9 years old. We bought here in Coaldale. We are living out in Westgate, and we're looking to be here for a long time. We've moved a lot, and we wanted to go to a place that hopefully will be one of our last moves, if not the last move. We've been through a lot, so we're happy to be here. It was exciting that we got this opportunity, and we wanted to police and live in the same community, so we specifically requested with our realtor that we were looking for a house in Coaldale. So, and yeah, we lucked out with a nice house, so we're very happy.
Awesome. Well, I hope that you'll be able to say one day, looking back, that Coaldale was the best place that you were ever posted to.
Yes, it's off to a good start already. So,
well, is it in your hands, because the policing makes a big difference on how people view our community, so we're hopeful that it'll be a good posting for you. Any questions through to our delegation? Oh, you're getting off lucky. Well, we want to welcome you again, and thank you, Glenn, for introducing us. And I think I noticed a few less gray hairs, and you're getting back to your natural color already, so that's good.
I've actually been pulling them out here. So, just same idea. I got a ways to go.
All right, good. All right. Well, we understand that you have a busy afternoon from call to service, so you don't need to deli any further here, probably. So thank you much. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes, you bet. Thank you.
When we get that August 24th item circulated, maybe.
Yeah. My apologies, Caleb. I was prepared.
Okay, Pete, we have Selkrow now. Now, see if you can follow up on that. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me today. My name's Peter Casarella from the South Grow Regional Initiative, where I am the Executive Director. The reason I'm here today is I have a mandate in my strategic plan to try to get to 75% of my communities every year, which is, I'm realizing, very, very ambitious, to give our stakeholders basically an in-person report on what we are doing and answer any questions that council may have for us today. So, Lana, what signal do you want when I'm ready to go to the next slide? Make it so. Excellent. So the South Grow Regional Initiative has been around since 2004. We are a regional economic development alliance that was set up back then by the province in order to offer the regions a way to collaborate within their own area in order to do what they do best. The current ministry has really doubled down on this idea, believing that the regions know what is best for the region when it comes to economic diversification. And they have offered their support, which we hope translates into more support when we hit the end of our current contract in 2020. Our mission is to accelerate and enhance the quality of life development and sustainability for the communities in the South Grow region, and we pursue 3 pillars underneath that umbrella: strategic collaboration, economic development, marketing, and communication. And that really means for South Grow that we focus on agriculture, agri-food development, broadband, and renewable energy, areas that we have a natural advantage in down here in southern Alberta, and which there is a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can seize. Go ahead. So over the years since 2004, South Grow has been involved in the background of a lot of the successes that have happened in southern Alberta. Had our fingers in every little bit of pie that's come along and provided support, gone after grants, got money, put together partnerships that have enabled investments, over 24 large-scale studies that have continue to inform investment in the region, lots of development tools, trainings for councillors over the years, and resulting in tens of millions of dollars in external funding that has poured into the region because of the efforts of South Grow and the partners that we've brought on board to different projects. So in the last year, the 2017 to 2018, we were extremely busy. It did see the transition from my predecessor, Pete Lovering, to myself, but this is just a list of some of the projects we were involved in during that year. I've highlighted some of the ones which were particularly meaningful. Pete Lovering and a few of the other folks from around the region, they went on a trade mission to China, and that trade mission actually has managed to bring in some significant investments into southern Alberta already, and we're looking to leverage those relationships that we built as we continue to work on the foreign direct investment piece in the future. The current value of the projects that we are involved in right now is over $3 million, and it's significant because our base funding is only $100,000 from the provincial government every year, matched by 25% from our membership, from our member communities. So we've managed to leverage our base resources into many, many times the investment that we were given to start with. Next slide. So tangible to returns for Coaldale. I put Barnwell up there. You can see I've been going around to lots of communities with this particular presentation and forgot to update that. But last year we produced an economic development community profile. Pete Lovering got them updated. He was doing them for a number of years. In the future, we are moving ahead with Coaldale's commitment on this project to deliver this times 10. We've engaged a company from Saskatchewan called Townfolio, which is going to be in touch with your administration, is going to be getting your website all set up so that you have your own customized market data and site selection tools that are world-class. This is not just data and statistics, it's a marketing tool. And we're going to be hosting a training session this fall for administration from around the region on how to use these tools effectively. We also delivered the South Grow Community Business Retention, Expansion, and Marketing Plans, which was given to your administration last winter. The Community Broadband Report went out the year before that, right at the end of the 2017 year there. And of course, I just mentioned the CARES RETA 2 Site Selection Project, which is that Townfolio project. Next slide. Here's just a list of some of the research projects that are informing investments in the region that South Grow was involved in. I was just in a meeting this morning with Dr. Keen Tran from the University of Lethbridge and one of his partners on our next big research project. We're trying to get off the ground a cost-benefit analysis of broadband investments in rural agricultural scenarios. There hasn't been a study like this done. We've identified a real gap, and we're wanting to do an ambitious project which covers all of the province of Alberta, so that at the end of the day we have a solid argument both to public organizations like the province themselves about why it's good to invest in infrastructure and broadband in the rural areas, particularly for farmland, and also a document that informs a different business case model for private businesses that are trying to expand networks in rural Alberta. This, of course, will feed the growth of the agricultural industry in southern Alberta and the agri-food industry, which has payoffs for all of our small towns throughout the region. And next one. Our current large grant projects that we're working on, we're almost finished with the $100,000 we got for the CARES RETA 1 stream, which was a lot of that municipal investment plans and showcase that's already been delivered to your administrations. We've done a lot of work in renewable energy. There are more proposed renewable energy projects on the board right now for southern Alberta than there is transmission capacity to accommodate them. So the province has to make selections as to what are the best projects for southern Alberta in order to get those off the ground. And we've been working very, very hard on that file along with our partners from Alberta Southwest and Economic Development Lethbridge to make all those happen. And of course, our electrical vehicle charging stations project, which I have to spend a very long day reviewing the request for proposals. And that's going to mean the realization of 20 stations across southern Alberta that will make fast charge electrical vehicle travel actually possible. We don't have this now. We're going to have it within about a year, I'd say. It's going to be up and running and ribbon cutting. Next slide. What we're working on right now. So we have a 3-year strategic plan that Coaldale participated in setting up. And this is kind of how it's going for the next 3 years. It's an ambitious plan, but I've got a very, very talented executive for our board of directors who have committed to helping me make it happen. And we're looking to expand our staff resources right now so that a lot of this can get done in a much more effective manner than I can just do myself. Happy to answer any questions about any of those particular items that we are working on right now. And the strategic foci for the 2018 to 2021 year. Obviously, we can't do everything. We can provide a lot of support, but we really achieve a lot of benefits by doubling down on certain pillars and certain deliverables that we can do. We've done a lot of regional investment readiness, and of course our 3 economic development pillars that we are really focusing on at the bottom there too. I'd be happy to answer any questions. A couple last points just for Coaldale. Coaldale is really in a great place. When I look at the entire region and all the strengths and advantages that the different towns and municipalities have, Coaldale has probably the most along the Lethbridge-Tabor food corridor. You can offer lower mill rates than are available within the city, but you can have the competitiveness of having all the facilities that come along with a large-scale town. There is a ton of opportunity to go after right now. You've got an economic development officer who can participate with the other ECDEVs in the region, and this can be the fastest growing industrial commercial center within the entire South Grow region. That can happen. And it's going to be fun to get Cam involved in some of the sub-regional initiatives that are going on, particularly the Lethbridge-Tabor Food Corridor Network. We have had individuals come from both the federal government and from the provincial branches of the Protein Alliance of Canada, that supercluster initiative that's going on. They have come directly to us here in South Grow and said, when we want to go duck hunting, we go where the ducks are. And that's here, along this stretch of land between Lethbridge and Tabor. So they are looking to invest where there already are assets within agri-food, where agri-food is already strong. And Coaldale can be an essential part of that. So I think you'll probably be hearing a lot more of that over the next few years from Cam as he reports back to council on the activities that are happening. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for a good presentation, Pete. Any questions through to our presenter? Councillor Lloyd?
Do you still do those awards that you used to do? Different businesses?
Yeah, I've been playing catch up a lot in the 7 months since I started. As you can understand, it's a lot to figure out. We didn't do them this year just because it was so fresh after the transition that we couldn't possibly take it on. I would like to look at doing them again, yes. And if I have a committee to evaluate businesses in the region, can I send you an email?
Sure.
All right.
So there you go. Be careful what you ask. Well, that's great. Well, we thank you for taking time, and good luck on catching the rest of the municipalities and whatnot. But, you know, I'm glad you were able to take time to meet with us anyway. So that's,
Yeah,
and we
thank
wish
you very
you
much for
great
having me.
success in this ambitious plan that you got.
It's a bright time right now. We just have to go out and seize the opportunity. So, thank you.
Well, we'll do everything we can to help you. All right. Okay, we have Chief McEwen here. Hey, welcome, Chief.
Hi there, thank you. So you have the staff report that was submitted. I did put together just a very quick slideshow that just summarizes things a little bit quicker than going through the whole staff report. So I'd like to give an update to where we are today with the fire hall expansion and renovation project and where we need to go and what the next steps are. Lana, next slide, please. So we'll just go through the progress to date. So this was initially talked about kind of at the committee level, the Joint Emergency Services Committee, and I also presented on it last year during business plans. It's kind of where this project started out. We did do a needs analysis on the fire hall, why it needs expanded, what improvements it does need at this current time, and where it needs to go. So that has been done. Structural assessment was done by MPE. In April of this year, we hired Ian Moxon Architects, who was the low bidder that we had sent out to tender for design. So we've been working with them since April. We've been having about bi-weekly meetings since then, all through summer, working with those architects. Geotech hazardous materials assessment have both been done on the existing hall and the grounds that are there. We had done the preliminary design and floor plan, and that's about the last time that we came here to ask for some more guidance on this project that we got. We have the last house on the block has now been demolished, and now we're at the point of having finalized detailed designs and floor plan. So we've gone from basically sketches on a napkin, very conceptual design, to the next screen. This is where we sit today. We have 3D renderings of what the fire hall will look like. So we did pursue the 2-story addition and renovation of the existing hall, and that has the EOC on the 2nd floor, which would take it away from the hub, opening up the hub for rental. Next slide. So we've listed in detail in the staff report how this project fits into many of your focus areas that were set out during your strategic planning last year. Secondary to public safety, of course, being number one. The one I'm very excited about is the stakeholders and partnerships. So in our current space, there would be no way for us to branch out and build on these new initiatives. With a new fire hall that has additional training and living space, will give us the capacity and opportunity to build new partnerships. One such partnership we're working on is a 3-way collaborative effort with Palliser Regional Schools and NATE. So we pitched the idea of creating a fire academy, which would be a 2-year for credit secondary school program, which would see students starting grade 11 and by grade 12 finish with a NATE Medical First Responder Certificate and NFPA 1001 Level 1 Fire Certificate. It's an opportunity to put Kate Andrews and Coaldale on the map, and we see this being a sought-after program which may entice more high school students to remain in Coaldale. Palliser is fully on board and would love to see a September 2019 rollout of this. So really exciting, something that could be very great for the town. We're also going to be meeting with AHS in the next couple weeks about possibly renting bay space and living space in the fire hall. So these partnerships allow us to create innovative revenue streams that will assist us in servicing the debenture so as to not increase our annual operating budget. Next slide. So a couple pictures from this past May during Experimental Learning Week. We had a few of us taught first aid CPR at the high school, and we had some high school students come to the hall. This was a huge hit. They absolutely loved it. You can see from the smiles on their faces, something they really enjoyed. And this really kicked off that Fire Academy idea. So next steps, where do we need to go from here? So next slide. So ultimately today I'm looking for a recommendation that'll give authorization to town administration to post the fire hall renovation and expansion project to tender for construction. And if we go to the next slide, our timeline going forward from here is once we do go to tender, we're looking at a 3-week tender period, 1 to 2 weeks for bid analysis. Right now, the architects are saying a phase construction with a mid-October start. And phase 1 would be that new fire hall bays to house the elevated master stream that's going to be coming next year. And that deadline will be May 2019, as they're hoping to have that phase 1 of construction complete. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Any questions for the chief? Councillor Pauls?
Stuff we got on your parking lot on the east side, I guess.
Yes.
It says gravel. Are you gonna just go on gravel?
We're looking at gravel potentially to start, just so we can remain in the budget, with the idea that we would go asphalt or paved.
Well,
once
asphalt
we have
would
the
be
money.
smarter.
We would prefer that it's paved, but We were just thinking of
Maybe we'll have
maintaining
to
the budget.
get the kinsman to come and get you some money or something.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. I just wondered if, I was hoping that was a typo.
Not
No,
a
eh?
typo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kalen?
And just one point on the asphalt. We agree. Gravel's not there because of a preference, but if by not putting it into the tender, we're not paying construction management fees markup, and that's we can have that done administrated in-house in order to save some money as well. So we're just paying for asphalt, not 20% to manage that asphalt.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
So we have a recommendation for consideration. They only put one recommendation, so it's Councillor Lloyd, you move recommendation number 1? Okay, so we have Councillor Lloyd moving recommendation number 1 as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Or you didn't? You voted in favor, right? Yeah. Good. That's carried unanimously. And then, so now sequentially, we can probably go back to item 6.1. And since we've gone this far down the road, I think it'd be kind of silly not to entertain first reading of the borrowing bylaw. But
now we can look how to pay for it.
yeah.
So I have before you the first reading of the borrowing bylaw, in that we would be borrowing $2.1 million to go towards the building of the renos for the fire hall.
Any questions through to Michelle on the borrowing bylaw? Kalen?
Do we know what interest rate we're gonna get?
It depends when we actually borrow it, depending on the timing of the tender. If it looks like we're not going to need the money until next year, then it might slightly change. Because I don't foresee borrowing in December if we don't need the money until March. I'd rather not pay the interest for that if we can get away with that.
So for 30-year debenture, you know what the indicative rate is right now? Is
I
it
haven't looked lately. It
in the
was about
3.2 range, probably?
3.1.
3.1?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the borrowing bylaw has an upset rate of 10%, but that's just that won't be the rate we pay. Otherwise, we can go to payday loan and get it better. Okay. Who wants to be get all the glory for proposing the first reading of this? Councillor Holm.
Move that we have first reading of the borrowing bylaw 743B09-18 for the fire hall.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Pass unanimously. Thank you, Michelle. And this works out really well because then you get a whole bunch of item 7 things right coming up. So you're on deck for 7.2 all the way to 7.10. So
Staff have been working very hard over the summer. So.
yeah. Okay, we'll start off with 7.2, the financial variance report.
So far starting the year, we're looking really strong in terms of being under budget through most things. Things that we are over budget are more for timing purposes in terms of things that come later in the year. So we don't always take that in consideration. And our capital as well, we have a few that are that appear to be over budget, but in actual fact, they're trade-in values that have not been taken into consideration because I didn't have that information when I was doing the variance reports. So from what everybody I've talked to and from what I've seen of the trade-in values, we're actually within budget for everything so far this year.
And then on the Operating, do you want to, anybody have any questions on the capital portion of the variance? Okay, we move to operating then.
And the operating as well, we're doing really well. Revenues are obviously a little bit down, but again, a lot of that is to do with grants, which we haven't quite got yet, or year-end transfers, which have not occurred yet.
All right, so motion to receive 7.2 as presented. Councillor Simpson, all in favor? Okay. 7.3, bank reconciliation.
So as you can see from, for all our statements, we've been including everything, so council sees where we are with our GICs as well as what's our in our bank accounts. And as you can see, as usual, the start of the year start to drop, but we pick up later on, but we're still in a good financial position right now.
Okay, any questions through to Michelle on item 7.3? Okay, motion received. Approved. Councillor Avery, all in favor? Okay, that's approved. And
And the same goes for March.
so is there anything different between March, April, May?
Just the
or
balance changing is really what's changing between them. And then
Yeah.
the biggest one will be June, where you'll see quite a spike in the bank accounts where tax season is coming to play.
So
So if you wish to
if
do all of them at
Michelle
once.
wants to, if anybody wants to put Michelle out of her misery, we could take a omnibus motion to receive 7, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 all at once, unless there's questions. Councillor Avery moves those items. 7, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All in favor? Okay.
Oh, you didn't want to listen to me to say the same thing again and again and again? That's okay.
And then maybe in the spirit of the same kind of working relationship, maybe for 7, 8, 9, and 10, you can maybe just speak to the highlights or abnormalities or anything that you want to point out to us that we need.
As far as to what I'm aware of, there's nothing abnormal in these accounts payable runs, but to me, what looks normal might not be the same as council. So if there are any within them that you need questions, I'm certainly, if I can't answer them here, I will certainly get back to you.
Did anybody have any questions to Michelle on any of the checks appearing in any of those reconciliations on accounts payable? Councillor Holm?
Not sure I really want to bring it up, but I know back last time we went through these, we had the comment about would like to at least see something on tenders on a number of different things, and I see a lot of items here that are in the $8, $9, $10, $15,000 range, and I think brought to council in the last 6 months. I think we've had 2 items that have actually been brought to council, say, oh, we tendered this out and this was the low bid. And if I'm going to vote in favor of a check that's already written, I certainly want to make sure that a lot of these items that are over $5 and $10 and $15,000 are actually being tendered out, or at least a request for proposals being put out that I'm satisfied that they were the low bid. Because if I got to vote on something that's already been paid, I'd at least like to have a conscience that it was the low bid that actually got it. Thank you.
Kaylin?
Just a clarification on the threshold. So, we follow our purchasing policy. So, say it's an amount that's 10,000, then it doesn't go for tender because of the dollar value. You get 2 quotes or 3 quotes. So, the tendering threshold. Typically, if it's a large capital project, interprovincially, it's tendered if it's $250,000, and if it's services, at $75,000. So those typically get the big tenders. If we're looking at something that's design where we want to get a bunch of different proposals, then we'll RFP it. But you know, for the dollar amounts that are 10,000 and under, typically we follow the policy and get multiple quotes. Are you wanting to see the quotes that are getting for the items that are 10,000 and under? Because that's a big difference in terms of the paperwork and workload and reporting. So,
Okay, thanks for your explanation. No, I don't need to see the tenders. Even if on this listing there was another column put in that actually puts a note saying request for proposals or request for quotes or something was actually done for each of these, that at least would satisfy me that I'm going to vote on something that, you know, like, just grab one really quick here. $9,248 for painting crosswalks to JB Lines. I have no idea who JB Lines are. I don't care who they are, but I'd like a note someplace to say we spent $10,000 and JB Lines was actually either the low bid, or at least we sent out a request for proposals and they were the only one that came in. Something that gives me some conscience that that isn't somebody's brother-in-law that just got a $9,248 contract to paint yellow lines. So that's all I'm asking for. So even if there's just another column there that says, yeah, these items we actually requested some bids.
Well, I think, you know, maybe, you know, that's a good observation, and, you know, maybe it'd be good to have administration bring back maybe what a proposed draft accounts payable checklist would look like, and then we could approve if that, you know, like you say, maybe that second or third column says, okay, under, you know, what authority was this done? You know, is it under, you know, was there a request for service bid, or, you know, those kinds of, yeah. Okay.
Can I just clarify one question? Do you want anything over 10, or you want them between 5 and 10? Because it does make a difference. Like, I need a minimal amount is what I'm asking.
I think minimum must be $5,000.
5,000.
Write a check without asking a question.
But I think what your point would be too is, you know, but I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but like, I guess in aggregate over a period of time, if XYZ company did this certain service each and every month for 12 months, and in aggregate that would be a certain amount of money. And so if that happened, was that, you know, kind of a, you know, like, you know, maybe administration can do some thinking around those to make sure that, you know, and then, you know, a proposed kind of a format could be brought to upcoming council meetings, so we can have because I agree, and that sets it up to, you know, then it's good transparency in the accounting and.
Totally agree, because, you know, maybe it's for window washing and it's $2,000 every 2 weeks for window washing. Well, that adds up to a lot of money at the end of the year, even though it was only $2,000 on each one of these check runs.
Hey, Kellen, you.
No, I think this is great timing, because some of the things that we've been discussing internally, sometimes it's a lot of work to get multiple quotes for things that are, you know, $1,000 here or there. So we could put out an RFP with a price schedule for that for the next 2 years, and then that way you have it locked in. It's a little bit more efficient. And then in that column, we can just indicate that this service falls under the price schedule that they had, you know, been awarded through this RFP process. So I think we can make this pretty efficient.
So maybe in that vein, would you sponsor a motion to direct the administration to come out with an approved accounts payable checklist for council's approval then?
You just took the words out of my mouth. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay, Councillor Holm made that very well worded motion. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, and then getting back to the main question, does anybody have any questions on any of the accounts payable list within those 3 business items, 7, 8, and 9, and 10? If not, I'd entertain a motion to receive all 3 items for information. Councillor Simpson? So Councillor Simpson is moving 7, 8, 7, 9, and 7, 10. All in favor? Thank you, Michelle. Then we have a request from the town of Cardston. Cam, you want to speak to that?
Thank you. So yes, we received a request from the town of Cardston, specifically from their economic development officer. They're interested in pursuing the expansion of the nearby Carway Pagan border crossing. Operates from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Not me. Okay. It operates from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. They're looking to seek to have that expanded to 24 hours a day, and they are also interested in seeing that facility upgraded to allow for the easier processing of commercial truck traffic. So they are asking that the town provide them a letter of support for that initiative. It's very high level at this point. It's very information seeking at this point. It is not clear with the information that was provided and that was provided to council from the town how such an expansion would benefit the town of Coaldale specifically. There are arguments to be made that that expansion would potentially benefit town businesses in terms of providing for easier border crossings, perhaps for our exporters to reduce wait times at the existing border crossing. Alternatively, the stance can be taken that diverting traffic away from the Sweetgrass border might potentially allow for import traffic to more easily bypass Coaldale. Either argument is reasonable. So at this point, simply it's so high level at this point that we didn't want to investigate, to spend a great deal of time and resources investigating the issue. If it's something council wants us to pursue, we certainly can. At this point, they're many steps away from achieving their goal. So if council's interested in sort of, as a good neighbor, providing a letter of support, we're willing to do so. Otherwise, we're willing to pass.
Thank you, Cam. Any questions through the Cam? Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you so much, Your Worship. And Cam, I appreciate seeing this. I guess in the benefit of the town of Coaldale, I know that we do have at least one export company, Nadura, for example, who would possibly be exporting and possibly could use that location. The numbers that that Cardston is providing, I think, seem to be fairly compelling towards the idea. And even though at a high level, obviously the feds would have their big stake in it as well. So I'd be happy to support your option number one, to write a letter to the town of Cardston indicating the town's support for the outlined initiative.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Chapman, option number one. Any other discussion? Okay, I see none. All in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Unless I missed, I think I saw everybody go up. All right. And then we have 7.12, the Alberta Parks and Recreation Association. Lana?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We received correspondence from the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association asking if council was interested in doing an elected officials workshop related around pathways and well-being for communities. They did offer 3 options in our community, as well as an online option or attending an event like outside in Jasper. I also would like to note that since we received this correspondence, that we have also received the Roger Brooks community development as well, so that's also something to consider because they are somewhat similar. So I'm here today to ask council if this is of interest.
Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Your Worship. I did spend some time thinking about this, and thank you, Lana, for putting this together. I guess my thoughts obviously are more long-term, and how would this benefit the town of Coaldale, being that we haven't got a real recreation committee or focus yet.
I agreed that it might be premature for our plans for our town right now.
I think, okay, go ahead, Councillor Holm.
I'd move that we decline the invitation to participate in this workshop.
Okay. We have a motion by Councillor Holm to decline the invitation. Any other discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Yeah, it's carried unanimously. Thank you, Lana. And then you're here to speak on to the library board.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Item 7.13, the Coaldale Public Library had contacted our office to inform us that they have applied for a grant, and in their grant application they noted that we have a misalignment of our appointment for counselor to the committee. So they're asking for an amending an amending motion to reflect that to support and appoint Councillor Brianne Simpson to the library board for a 3-year term concluding on October 26, 2020. The grant application states that a councillor can't be appointed to the board for 4 years of what we did to align with our council term, and instead could be 3 years, and then at the conclusion of the 3-year we could appoint again for another 1-year term. Additionally, they were also looking at the same meeting when we did our organizational meeting in October that we appointed our county partners from Lethbridge County, Councillor Tori Campbell, for the same reason. And when I contacted the county to ask them if they were supportive of that, they said that they're currently reviewing their committees and boards that they belong to. They also noted that they currently belong to the Chinook Arch region as well as to the Public Library Board. So they're questioning of whether or not they want to to support both committees. So they asked at this time to just be reflective that Councillor Tori Campbell was on the library board until the org meeting of October 18th, until they'll redecide at that time of their commitment moving forward.
Councillor Simpson?
What I understood from the chair is that with County Councillor Campbell, is that they actually, for the grant, they actually don't, he needs to be on as a individual person, not as a councillor.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, as a citizen member, yes.
Yeah.
Could I make an amendment to the recommendation then to say, to eliminate the word councillor and say citizen?
Okay. And Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship. In that case, I will make the motion that council support and appoint Councillor Brianne Simpson to the library board for a 3-year term concluding October 26, 2020, and that council support and appoint member at large Tori Campbell to the Coaldale Library Board for the term ending October 18th, 2018, and to be reviewed for future involvement by the Lethbridge County at that time. Yeah. Or do we need to, if he's going to be a member at large, then the county wouldn't have to review that position?
Well, they're going to inform us at that time when they do their org meeting of what their future involvement will be, if it will be on Chinook Arch or Coaldale Public Library.
I think the way that it is, it probably could just be a full stop at the end of 2018 anyway. Then it's up to the county, Tory or the county to
make their decision.
I'm wondering
I'll make that
You'll take
as
that
an amendment.
Okay.
I just, from how the grant is, I'm just wondering if we keep that future involvement by Lethbridge County at this time, if that will hinder the grant process with it. If maybe we can just say to be reviewed future in the future, or to be reviewed in future, and leave it at that.
So the way it's proposed right now, it's just a full stop after October 18, 20.
Yeah, and then if he wants to reapply as a member at large, right? Yeah. So.
Okay.
Is that eliminating the end of the sentence there then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So it'd be taking future involvement by
period
Lethbridge County.
Where the comma is.
Okay.
Yeah, 2018.
Okay, and Councillor Chapman accepts as a friendly amendment, so we have that motion by Councillor Chapman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Lana.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have some departmental reports. We have the development stats. Cindy's left behind dry, but they're pretty self-explanatory. Looking pretty good. Any questions on them? And maybe there's somebody from administration that can answer them if called upon. But Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship. I'm just as a comment, just pleased to see the definition under our other areas as infill.
Okay, great. So then I would entertain a motion that we receive both reports for information if there's no other questions. Councillor Lloyd, all in favor? Okay. And so Councillor Avery, you're on deck for 9.1.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. 2 weeks ago, I was privileged to go accept an award from the Minister of Municipal Affairs for Coaldale being the safe community for the year of 2018. So that's quite an honor and prestigious award that we were given out of all the municipalities and communities within the province to receive this. And this really goes to our staff and our volunteers who have devoted the time into the training for making sure that we are providing a safe community for our residents to reside in. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being there to accept on behalf of the staff, as you mentioned. And
thanks.
It's a very attractive award, too. Does staff want to, do you have an acceptance speech? No. And then Councillor Chapman.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, and to members of council, and of course those viewing on camera today. Just as a way of introduction, it's been really rewarding to nominate our businesses and our groups and also individuals in our town of Coaldale for various awards. So over the past 10 years, our town has been successful as recipients of awards from not only our Chamber of Commerce, but also South Grow and, of course, now Canadian Badlands. I am actually council's representative on Canadian Badlands, and noticing that they have an awards program, I sensed it was time to raise our flags once again. So the criteria for nomination include a demonstration that the group or persons promote their community and tourism through their vision and perseverance, as well as they need to express initiative, passion, creativity, innovation, and of course some risk. Our Communities in Bloom Committee, consisting of 16 members led by President Doreen Lloyd, certainly fit the criteria. On March 14th, 2018, our nomination won, and we were presented with the award at the Canadian Badlands Convention Gala in Medicine Hat, and the photo explains that. The Communities in Bloom name is recognized on the Canadian Badlands home website as well, and a $500 contribution is made in their name to the Cindy Amos Memorial Scholarship at SAIT in Calgary. So that's another further acknowledgement. So on August 15th, Communities in Bloom hosted a supper at the Gem of the West to welcome their 2 Alberta judges and also to celebrate their founder, Dave Neufeld. At this event, I presented this award to the committee on behalf of the Canadian Badlands. So congratulations, Doreen Lloyd and your committee. And this is the award.
Yeah. Thank you to both councillors for writing and submitting those reports. And I'd entertain a motion from council to receive both of those council reports for information. Councillor Pauls? All in favor? All right. Then we have information items, and so with the most recent one being 11.8, the Roger Brooks event coming up, and that's thanks to the town staff for submitting the application to host that, being one of the 4 host sites to do it. And out there promoting it and that. Lana or Kaylin sent out a calendar invite to council to see if members of council want to attend. So, yeah. Any questions? Anybody want to raise any specific issues with any of the information items? If not, I'd entertain a motion to receive the information items for information, unless there's any action required on. Councillor Chapman moves receipt for information, items 11.1 through to 11.8. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Then a motion to go in closed session. Councillor Simpson, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Let's just take a 5-minute